my children of the night. We're starting a bit early, so I will be waiting a couple minutes for people to actually start showing up. But for the time being, welcome to the darkest dungeon. Of course, if you are not totally up to speed with what this game is about and what we are going to be doing with it, you are in for some painful surprises. This is not a forgiving sort of adventure, nor is it one that cares too much about your feeling and your attachment to a few characters. Blood will be spilled, bones will be broken, and minds will bend and break. But there is no reward without an adequate risk. And the risk in this case is the greatest of all. You may ask, why would we want to endure this nightmare? Why do we want to go through this pain? Children, the purpose is pain. Well, the time has come. The hour is late, and our foray into the dungeons must eventually begin. We cannot delay much longer. So, let us begin. A letter arrives bearing news of an ancestor, granting you ownership over a manor and a hamlet. You accept the letter and begin your journey. Be prepared, but know that it won't be now.
You will arrive along the old road. It winds with a troubling, serpent-like suggestion through the corrupted countryside, leading only, I fear, to ever more tenebrous places. There is a sickness in the ancient, pitted cobbles of the old road, and on its writhing path, you will face viciousness, violence, and perhaps other damnably transcendent terrors. So steel yourself, and remember there can be no bravery without madness. The old road will take you to hell, but in that gaping abyss, we will find our redemption.
So, the stagecoach is gone, our caretaker is lost, and we're left with two poor souls trapped in the woods, with meager supplies.
Brigands have run up these lanes.
Little to
Keep
rely
to the
on
side path.
except each other,
The hamlet is just ahead.
and the bravery
An
that
ambush.
comes
Send these
from
vermin a
absolute
message. The
madness.
rightful owner has returned, and their kind is no longer welcome. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. Leave nothing unchecked. There is much to be found in forgotten places. Dispatch this thug in brutal fashion, that all may hear of your arrival.
The problem with doing a commentary on this game is that the ancestor will not shut up, and we will inevitably end up speaking over each other.
Death by inches. Unnerved, unbalanced.
And we're done.
This expedition
Not
at
too hard
least
for
promises
the time
success.
being. I do wonder what is inside this trap chest. Do we want to run the risk? I think this is the only time ever that the game throws us a bone and outright tells us that its chest is trapped. So we will ignore it. Discretion is, after all, the better part of valor. Let us return to the hamlet.
Welcome home, such as it is. This squalid hamlet, these corrupted lands, they are yours now, and you are bound to them. Most will end up here, covered in the poisoned earth, awaiting merciful oblivion.
Nothing we can afford,
Trinkets
of
and
course.
charms, gathered from all the forgotten corners of the earth. In time, you will know the tragic extent of my failings. Women and men, soldiers and outlaws, fools and corpses. All will find their way to us now that the road is clear. Mecca of madness and morbidity. Your work begins.
I would say I don't exactly like how the Vestal is set up, but I don't have much in the way of well, we have nothing. And we need to start our first mission if we are to ever gain anything at all. Well, here is our team. We have a Crusader, an infallible holy warrior. We have a highwayman, a rogue prepared to do anything for riches or maybe for something more, a disgraced priestess, and a doctor who is more interested in experimenting and dissecting our victim than really reclaiming this land. Interestingly, we could just jump in and attempt to besiege the darkest dungeon itself right at the outset. We would all die, of course, but it's interesting that we have the possibility.
The cost of preparedness, measured now in gold, later in blood.
Well, I don't think we're going to get any more prepared than this. And here we are. And here we are. We start our first real quest.
The match is struck. A blazing star is born.
Remember, surviving is only half the challenge. The other half is surviving with your mind intact. And that is the hard part.
Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. Another one falls. This expedition at least promises success. Even the cold stone seems bent on
You
preventing
think we brought
passage.
shovels? It seems not all of our enemies are of the undead variety. But flesh breaks just as easily as bone.
Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
Of course, one might think that using poison and bleeding and stealth and subterfuge might be dishonorable ways of fighting this war. Then again, I think we abandoned honor long ago, when this became a fight not only for our survival, but for that of much greater things.
Confidence
Die and be
surges as the enemy
forgotten.
crumbles. A death by inches. Glittering gold, trinkets and baubles, paid for in blood. Ambushed by foul invention.
Let's see what awaits us. More of them. More helpless souls bound to incomplete bodies. wandering endlessly these halls. In a sense, this is an act of mercy. Letting them leave would be objectively more cruel.
The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken.
Well, we're almost done. 2 more rooms, and then we will have completely explored this section of the ruins. A rather easy beginning. No one's dead, no one's losing their mind. For now.
As the light gains purchase, spirits
Of
are
course, we
lifted.
could decide to make things a bit harder for ourselves. For example, by snuffing out the torch and proceeding in utter darkness. See, now we are faced with a choice. We either continue and explore the last room, or we return victorious to the hamlet. We didn't get here by playing it safe now, did we?
Secrets and wonders can be found in the most tenebrous corners of this place. Powerful blow.
Ah, the joyful moment where the massacre begins. Remind yourself, we do not endure pain for the sake of a greater purpose. Pain is purpose.
Seize this momentum. Push on to the task's end.
Blood. Interesting. I suppose we can leave.
The tents are pitched, banners fly, and the corpse wagons stand at the ready. The circus has come to town.
The cobwebs have been dusted, the pews set straight. The abbey calls to the faithful. Fresh kegs, cards, and curtained rooms promise solace to the weary and broken alike. The raw strength of youth may be spent, but his eyes hold the secrets of 100 campaigns.
Well, we have quite a lot of choice this time. Can explore more of the ruins, or we can begin with the past and experience the colors of madness in all their glory. But not yet. I prefer to shut my eyes and crawl down into the ruins than to expose myself to the haunting light of the color out of space. This should be plenty.
The
Of
fiends must
course,
be driven back.
death is
And what
always
better place to
present.
begin than the seat of our noble line?
And the quest this time involves murdering everything that stands in our way. So whether we want it or not, blood will be spilled today. Bones will be broken. And the mind will bear the burden.
Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles.
Veil Victus. Nothing of value, of course. Another worker is thrown.
In Radiance, may we find victory.
Seek for absolution is a temporary measure, but we cannot afford to do without it, can we? What right do we have to invade this creature's lairs, lay waste, and slaughter them? What right do they have to exist? What right do we have to our continued fight? Idle questions. When you are stuck in the battle with no way out other than fighting your way forward, such consideration fade into a mist of hatred, blood, and sight.
This advantage. Give them no quarter. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own.
I've not neglected to mention this.
A dizzying blow to body and brain.
There is nothing we are not prepared to destroy.
Begone, fiend. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. The light, the promise of safety.
Back into the fray once more. Of course, it should be noted that pushing the enemies that fight in melee to the back row will weaken them, and dragging the ranged enemies up close will weaken them likewise. Then again, all of these considerations are quite unimportant when one can simply focus on destroying everything.
Reeling, about to break. A death by inches.
The blade would have destroyed it on its own, but no reason not to finish it off in a more violent fashion, right? I think it's about time we camp.
Gathered close in tenuous firelight and uneasy companionship. The match is struck. A blazing star is born.
One could easily mistake camaraderie for friendship, or friendship from camaraderie. The truth is, in a situation such as this, when lives are on the line, and when the outside world is so distant that it might as well be on another planet, there is no difference. We are in here together.
Executed with impunity. Another one falls. A singular strike. A decisive pummeling.
Such worthless opponents barely pose a challenge. I yearn to be destroyed.
Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken.
Take a moment to appreciate all the lives we are taking. Don't do anything without consideration, mind you. Just consider it and keep it in the back of your mind. Eventually, it will break it.
Curious is the trap maker's art, his efficacy unwitnessed by his own eyes. Wealth beyond measure, awarded to the brave and the foolhardy alike.
More wastes of my time.
To the pit.
Not even worthy of being considered enemies, mere obstacles, unaware of their own imminent mortality.
A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
Unearned vial of antivenom. Well now, time to extend another dose of destructive mercy to these creatures.
Precision and power.
A powerful blow.
Simply pathetic.
The slow death, unforeseen, unforgiving. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
How
Bones return to rest.
disappointing.
Devils
No one
remanded to their
dead.
abyss.
No one driven insane. Perhaps we should take more risks. Snuff out our torches.
Though long years may
Wander
seek
in
to
the
separate
dark.
them, action and
See
consequence will invariably
for the
have their
darkness,
dreadful reunion.
darkness, and the creatures that dwell therein. Know that before the world as we know it, there was only the dark, and before there was the dark, there were monsters.
To fight the abyss, one must know it. Make no mistake, we will face ever greater threats. Our soldiers must be ready. The bellows blast once again. The forge stands ready to make weapons of war. man in a robe, claiming communion with the divine. Madness.
And it is a warrior fight. A few more options to go. I want to break the swamps and risk the Crimson Curse itself. Do I want to explore the wilds and face what hides among the trees? Do I want to keep going in the ruins in the hopes that the true architects of those monstrosities will reveal themselves? Or again, are we prepared to face the colors of madness?
The courtyard and gardens surrounding the manor.
Let us go into the courtyard and see
Custodians I employed.
the
Great
insectoid
banquets and
horrors
lavish
that
social
lurk
affairs were
therein.
hosted here under the stars. Despite the expectation of propriety
Imagine
normally
a
ascribed to those in
swarm
our position, we
of
mocked the stoic
blood-sucking
melancholy of the
parasites.
moss-covered fountains and cherubic statues, our salacious trysts half hidden in the hedgerows, our morality slipping ever deeper into the mud. Soaked and sinking, these stone terraces and sprawling gardens were the site of long-forgotten revelry and well-remembered regret. Death by inches. A powerful blow. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
Mere servants, unworthy of my time.
Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
And so it begins. Craving for blood.
fight falters. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. Wealth beyond measure, awarded to the brave and the foolhardy alike.
Life here does not work as you had expected.
Hold fast.
Sorry, there's some. Let's get back to the market.
The slow death. Unforeseen. Unforgiving.
Well, where do we go from here? Simply pathetic.
Another one falls. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Destroying their infancy is indeed a very pleasant activity.
If only treasure could staunch the flow. Otherworldly corruption.
Now, all of these creatures have the potential to become much more dangerous if they are permitted to drink our blood. So, we should do all in our power to prevent that. Makes sense, right?
These nightmarish creatures can be felled. They can be beaten.
Just off the bed. I suppose by now we all have understood that consecration is merely a trick to let our mind stay away from the realizations that would come were we to fully grasp the gravity of the situation we are in. Now, where is the last quest item?
A decisive bubbling. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own.
See, this is what happens when they successfully drink our blood. They become stronger, gain more attacks. What they do not gain is an immunity to a sharpened blade right in between the eyes.
Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
The glorious backtracking. So this room at least leads somewhere. But without reason. Not pleasure, not curious. I suppose the possibility of slaughter would be plenty of a reward on its own. And I'm not just talking about the slaughter of our enemies, of course. I long to see my own soldiers trampled under the heels that should not exist. The truth is, children, that I love war.
A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
I love charges, I love sieges, I love mop-up operations and retreats. Across the plains, on the sea, in the air, I love every act of war that can occur upon this earth. I love to be squashed under the enemy war machine. The humiliations as my troop crawl around like vermin, ducking the arc bomber flying overhead.
A hideous mutation. Unnatural and abhorrent.
This is going to be a difficult one. The mixture of dark blood and holy water may protect us for a while. It is vulnerable now. Strike. What madman dreams would have created this entity? Or is it just a byproduct of the hubris that is intrinsic to this place? Can malignancy itself develop into sentience and life itself?
Reeling, about to break. Perched at the very precipice of oblivion.
I've wasted.
Of course. What else were we expecting? Bleed it dry.
Teetering on the brink, facing the abyss.
The odds seem to be against beyond anything we have any hope of overcoming. One would think that blazing would work since its resistance is not so high. One would think stunning would work because, again,
A singular strike. A hand's breadth from becoming unwound.
but of course, like every other enemy that has 2 attacks in a row, stunning is just a placebo pretty much.
More dust, more ashes, more disappointment. Injury and despondence set the stage for
Reynold and Dismas, the first 2 to arrive to the hamlet, and now facing an enemy that could end them both in a single blow.
more blood soaks the soil, feeding the evil therein.
A crusader stands alone against a monster. A cowardly, hateful creature.
Mortality clarified in a single strike.
And as all hope is lost, one wonders, is it even possible anymore to succeed?
Such a terrible assault cannot be left unanswered.
Of course.
For the weak or the foolhardy.
Well, I have been wondering for how long I could resist
Lessons to be learned.
without a disaster of such magnitude.
She has paid dearly for her freedom. At Manor deserves better than this place. What better laboratory than the blood-soaked battlefield?
Well. The cemetery finally has its few entries. All killed by the same creature. Oh, poetic death? Under some definition, maybe. Hmm. How about we take a little break? I'll be back in, let's say, 5 minutes. Take the time to ponder the horrors ahead of us and the horrors we have already fought. And if you can, spread the word that this stream is going on right now, just in case somebody would be interested in the violent and bloodshed nightmare that comes with this endless crusade. people. Most of the estate is now open to us. And of course, our last attempt at raiding the courtyard has ended less than pleasantly. Provoke the creatures that are raising this living dead against us. Not much, but it will suffice.
The fiends must be driven back. And what better place to begin than the seat of our noble line? A fortune, waiting to be spent. In Radiance, may we find victory.
Know that the abyss is vast and unforgiving.
A death by inches. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
And yet they persist.
Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. A trifling victory, but a victory nonetheless.
Still, they hope to survive,
Another abomination cleansed
or at the very least to prolong their dreadful non-life.
Begone, fiend. Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken. Continually on
Die and be forgotten. Enough of this.
More bones return to rest. Devils remanded to their abyss. Awash in blood and delusion, he bears the burden of 1,000 lifetimes. At home in wild places, she is a stalwart survivor. and a strict instructor. Great heroes can be found even here, in the mud and rain.
The first of the bosses happens. I prepared to fight a true necromancer, an enemy that can raise the dead to serve and all rules of the world. We will follow that path. Like we know very well. Which is not dead, but alive. And with strange eons, even death may die.
Mastery over life and death was chief among my early pursuits. I began in humility, but my ambition was limitless. Who could have divined the prophetic import of something as unremarkable as a twitch in the leg of a dead rat? A devil walks these halls. Only the mad or the desperate go in search of him.
Now the hard part is not so much going to be fighting the necromancer as it is going to be finding him.
Even the cold stone seems bent on preventing passage.
This is not starting out under the best omens. blood and blood,
Another
but
abomination cleansed from our lands. Injury and despondence set the stage for heroism or cowardice. A dizzying blow to body and brain. Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all.
I'm totally sure.
A moment of respite.
Nothing
To
about
steel
this
oneself
place isn't
against the coming horrors.
places us in a position where we can have a chance to keep a valiant child, decidedly
The light,
unsuccessful.
the promise of safety.
Let's return home, regroup, and learn.
Regroup. Reassemble. Evil is timeless, after all. A fresh irritant to some. A sanguine memory to me.
Most of our parents are
Shoot, bandage, and pillage. The dancing steps of war.
We have very little in the way of missions that I could realistically succeed in. Oh, what a tragedy. Would you rather have an army of well-trained, skilled champions who still get routinely slaughtered by any monster they encounter? Would you rather face this situation with only a handful of desperate, helpless souls thrown into the meat grinder to fight a war they probably don't even understand? I think that for today we have seen enough of Darkest Dungeon. You have seen the heroism and you have seen its futility. You have seen madness destroy what was such a promising start, and you have seen the horrors that lurk just beyond the limits of our conscious mind. Thanks for the few who stood and watched as the disaster unfolds. Know that the road ahead does not get easier, that learning more only exposes one to greater dangers, and that looming into the distance, the darkest dungeon itself, like a yawning monstrosity, is always ready to accept the souls of those brave and foolish enough to enter it. Perhaps one day we will return to this hamlet and save it from the darkness that envelops it. But the truth is, salvation is temporary, and the horror is eternal.